Please listen carefully.
Welcome back to the Focus Target Podcast. This is your host, Smiley, with you once again with my co-hosts, Van and Shy. Gentlemen, it's been
Sir?
a while. How you doing?
How art thou?
I'm really great, and here's why. Because after many, many long months, years even, because it's been more than a year, right? So 1 point something years would be years, right?
Depends on where you're going with this.
How long has it been that I've been wanting to do a podcast on the Final Fantasy VII Remake?
Oh, man.
Just feel like it's been a long time. And finally, the day has come. Today is that day. Today is Final Fantasy VII Remake Day. And we're going to talk about that pretty much exclusively. I'm going to put out a warning here. We're going to take as much time as we need to really give this what it deserves. If it takes 2 episodes, listen, we did 5 episodes on the Star Wars trilogy. So, like, we can get 2 out of Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's a long game.
Nice.
My concern
just
is that
be
we won't
prepared
have
for
enough
that.
content to fill an hour.
It's
Oh.
always your concern. It's always your concern. It is never once. Well, there's that one time that we did like a 40-minute podcast.
Yeah.
But that was once. Just one time.
Was
okay.
Was it April 1st that it came out? Of last year?
I don't
Was it April 1st,
remember.
2020?
Somewhere around there. I'm not sure the
I
exact
think it was
date.
April of 2020. I don't think it was April 1st. I think it was like
Alright.
April 19th or 20th or something like that.
Oh, so it may not have been.
But now,
before
because
that.
you had asked the question, and we owe it to our podcast listeners and live viewers. Is anybody watching live chat, by the way?
I've got it up.
We were streaming the other day, and some guy said, "What's up?" and I completely ignored him.
We're still kind of getting the hang of this whole streaming thing and, audience interaction. We're learning. So bear with us. If we unintentionally diss you during one of our streams by not seeing your questions, we're sorry about that. That's not intentional.
April 10th.
April 10th. So I'm not a liar. We are a year and 3 days. That is 1.0 some years. And so regardless, today's Final Fantasy VII Remake discussion day. But before we get to that, we have a question of the day that we like to do here on the Focus Target Podcast. And so today's question of the day harkens back to our last episode. Last time we did a live Deep Rock Galactic episode that was with our guest host Z, which I'm sure you guys will see him again on here at some point. If you've been watching Van and I stream Valheim, you've gotten probably more than you bargained for, Z. Anyway, Deep Rock Galactic. Question of the day is about Deep Rock Galactic. Today's question is, what is your favorite class in Deep Rock Galactic and why? Let's start with Van. Van, favorite class in Deep Rock Galactic.
Actually, it's pretty easy for me. I think it's Scout.
Scout. Okay.
Yeah, I gotta go with Scouty Scout. So, full disclaimer: I haven't played Driller yet, but I have played my fair share of Engineer, Scout, and Gunner. And I think out of all of those, I just prefer Scout the most. I like the versatility that it has. It is kind of situational because without an NG, Scout's kind of bad, and also depending on which mission you're on. Right, like protect the drill dozer. Scout's okay for going back to that other room and getting stuff real quick or whatnot and picking up pieces, but for the most part, I think like Gunner would do better. But overall, I like Scout. The versatility is awesome. I feel like I can get myself out of danger pretty quickly, even though I'm squishy. If I had any feedback, it would be that the weapons aren't super powerful, but they're at least precise. So you could do like some long range shooting and stuff like that.
That's kind of the point, right? Like, I mean, if the weapons were as good as like a gunner's weapons, like, why?
Or even an NG's weapons, though. I feel like the Engineer has much better weapons than the Scout. But
well, what about you, Shy? What do you think?
I would say my favorite is Engineer, specifically because of one of the weapons they have, and that's the breach cutter, and that gun is so good. But I feel like before that gun, Engineer wasn't that powerful. So I think that gun basically makes them kind of a powerhouse. And I don't know. I really didn't like Engineer when I first started playing. I felt like there was a lot of responsibility with like putting your platforms down and having to like. I remember the first time I think it was me, Z, and Van were doing a run, and someone's like, "Why aren't you building a roof, Engie?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how to play this job. Too much responsibility." And then like I learned how to build a roof, and then I learned like some of the strategies with Engineer, and it was pretty fun. I think maybe because Van likes playing Scout, it's fun. Like I haven't played Deep Rock Galactic in a while, probably because like Van and I haven't played in a while. But like because of synergized so well together, it's fun to play Scout NG. So yeah.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think NG is probably my second favorite, but I'm just terrible at utilizing the sentry gun. What's it called? The turret cannon. So
I think it is
I just
Sentry.
feel
I
like
think you're right. Yeah.
is it? Yeah. So I just feel terrible anytime I play NG. Like I'm letting everybody in the world down.
I always forget the Sentry. Like it's like 5 minutes into the run, I'm like, oh, we fought like 2 waves already, and I haven't put my turret down. So
Well, I guess that segues well into my favorite, which is the Digger. Love the Digger because, as Shai said, it comes down to the weapons. First and foremost, the flamethrower
mhm.
is just so cool, and I've always had a affinity, I would say, for like channeled weapons or like stream weapons. I think it harkens back to when I was a kid and I saw Ghostbusters, and the way they shot
Mm.
those like laser
Yeah.
guns was like basically the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And so I've always loved guns like that just like shoot like a constant stream of energy or fire in this case. And I also love their little digging claws. Like they're just really they're great for close range combat if something comes up on you. They're very satisfying to use, like to just tear through the walls. And kind of like Shai was and Van were just saying, like you guys are talking about how there's a lot of responsibility and like kind of complications and like those jobs, both of those jobs require a little something extra. Like the digger is a very straightforward job. You see a wall, you dig through it. That's kind of your role. It's not that hard to figure out.
And
Like it's
God
great.
bless them for it.
Yeah, it's helpful. Like people like
Yeah.
having you around. It's easy to learn. It's great. I would say it's a great class for a starter on the game.
Mm.
Like probably once you get more experience in the game and really get into it, you might be able to do a lot more with some of the other classes. And I haven't unlocked all the special new guns and perks and things that the digger class gets. And so, maybe there's some more complexity still to come. I haven't played around with it as much as these guys have. So, but yeah, a good one for a starting class. Pretty easy to pick up and play, and pretty gratifying. So, especially once you upgrade that flamethrower a little bit to get a little extra ammo. Like that's the real drawback of that class early on is the ammo is you run through that fast, but you can get a lot of upgrades for it as you're leveling up. So.
One of the better classes just to have around in a group as well, especially at the end when the drop pod arrives, because they just dig right like a straight
Yes.
tunnel directly to the drop pod. Everybody loves having a digger around. So
Yes. Very
yeah.
true.
Yeah. Whenever they're like, pod is inbound, I'm like, okay, where's the digger? I'm just gonna
Yeah.
follow him back.
and if
Get,
he
get
and if he
behind
starts
me. Get in line, boys.
if he starts running through the tunnel, you're just like, what is your problem? Come on, man.
All right. Well, that's those are our favorites. If you have a favorite class in Deep Rock Galactic, or if you think that our choices are dumb and would like to tell us so, give us some feedback. Our contact information will be provided at the end of the show. All right, enough of that. Let's get into the real deal. Final Fantasy VII Remake. So, for anybody who doesn't know, they took Final Fantasy VII, which was the game that was released in 1997 for the PlayStation in North America. Um, one of the great classic RPGs of all time. It really kind of brought RPGs into the mainstream, I think, in a way they never had before because it was really one of the first great 3D RPGs. Like up to that point, everything was kind of the 16-bit 2D and oftentimes very beautiful. Some of the greatest RPGs ever made in that style. Of course, Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy 4 and Final Fantasy 6 and a host of other games on the Super Nintendo, but on the PlayStation, which had a kind of a different audience, Final Fantasy 7 kind of kicked the door down and showed people, hey, RPGs are not just like a weird Japanese thing. They're actually really cool and really approachable. And so 20 years later, finally, after much clamoring from the fan base, Square has come out with the Final Fantasy 7 remake. Um, just to be clear, if it wasn't obvious at this point, we're going deep on the spoilers today. So Final Fantasy 7 remake has some pretty cool twists, some pretty cool like moments at the end, in my opinion. And so, if you haven't played it and you think you're going to, or think you'd like to, I really recommend turn off this podcast for today, leave the stream if you're with us live, go out, play through the game. It's what did it take you, Shy? Did you get through in 20 hours? like
Well,
Van and I
no,
did?
I did everything. I think it probably took me closer to 30-ish hours, maybe a little bit
Okay,
more. I
wow.
did like all the
Right.
subquests I did, which I mean, I don't know. If you guys did it all in 20 hours and did that,
I was
then I don't
20.
know.
You're 4 hours? 40 hours?
Yeah, I think I
I'll have
was
to check
closer
my
to that. I
playtime.
was like 36 plus hours, I'm pretty sure.
I'll have to check my playtime and see where I was. I was thinking it was 20 something for some reason, but maybe I'm misremembering. Regardless, 20 to 40 hours, somewhere in that range. I mean, it's definitely worth your time. Don't let us spoil the game for you. Enjoy it for yourself. That's my recommendation. So let's get into it. So we've got a couple of different points of view here. Van and I um, played the original, loved the original. Shy tried the original once, I think, didn't really get very far. So it's cool that we're kind of coming at this from different angles. So I'm really, if it's okay with you, Van, I'd like to start with Shy and really get his kind of, history free viewpoint of like what do you think of the game, Shy? Like walk us through it. What, especially the plot, the did it live up, just whatever you want to say. Take the floor is yours.
Yeah, I've talked to you a little bit about this, Smiley, just in some of the time we've played Diablo 3 recently, but I didn't know what to expect from the story, and if we're gonna we said we're jumping into spoilers, so like
Yes.
we're just gonna put it out there. Like
Doors open.
the one thing I knew about the game, unfortunately, was that Aerith dies in the game. Like that's I feel like the big thing about 7. You know, grown men crying when Aerith dies and all this. But like I didn't know like what the
I did.
characters were like. I didn't know like what the really story was about. I knew there were like Mako reactors. I'd seen Advent Children, but to be honest, Advent Children made no sense to me. Probably because I'd never played the game.
Evan Turban doesn't
It
really
was
make sense
It
anyway.
I was gonna say it still doesn't make sense to me, so don't
um
feel bad.
but
It
like
does, but yeah, it's a
like
little.
I'd gotten introduced to a lot of the characters, like at least visually, right? Like I'd seen Reno and Rude, I'd seen Cloud, I'd
Right.
seen Aerith and Tifa, and Red 13, that kind of stuff. But so it was really interesting getting into the game and just like I thought the story was really well fleshed out and told a very interesting and engaging narrative. Like I play a lot of games like because of like the gameplay or because of the fun factor stuff like that, and I think 7 Remake has those, but it'd been a while since I'd played a game where I really just kept playing like I wanted to like play every night
See
to
what
like
happened.
see what happened. And like I was talking to
Yeah.
Smiley Van, but like the whole like terrorist, like the fact that they're terrorists took me
Yes.
back. Like I did not expect that these. I mean, I guess I kind of knew they were like freedom fighters. A lot of games you play as freedom fighters, but like the bombing of the reactors and seeing how that
Oh yeah.
affects other people in the slums and seeing like Barrett and Tifa's interactions, like Barrett trying to like justify and like this is necessary, but like Tifa being like I don't think this is right. Like the collateral damage isn't worth it. I thought it just was really interesting. I thought it really came together well.
It is interesting, isn't it? Because especially in this country, in the United States, the world kind of changed on September 11th, 2001, where terrorism really took on like that word meant something different, I think, to the American people than it used to. And so like you wonder how this game would have been received had it not come out before that. Had they had this maybe released in Japan, say in 2000, and come out here in 2002, like how differently it would have been viewed to know that like you're part of a terrorist organization. Like it's just crazy how times can change and how we can think about things so differently.
And then right now, like I feel like eco terrorists, I don't want to say are celebrated because that seems hyperbolic, but they certainly get their own shows on like Discovery Channel with like whale wars and things like that. So I don't know. It's
Yeah,
it's kind
Yeah.
of weird.
it
It's
is.
okay if they're like pro environment, right? Which I mean,
Right.
Avalanche is.
And
So I
that's what
mean,
they
there you
were.
go.
They're eco
Very,
terrorists. Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Right.
so I
They
don't
didn't
know.
want
Yeah.
to hurt anybody. But
And as far as like gameplay goes, like I kind of had like a love hate relationship with it. And I think I've shared that a bit with Van and Smiley as well. Like it started out, I'm like, all right, this is kind of weird, and I'm like, oh yeah, I like this a lot. And then like halfway through, I'm like, I hate this. This really sucks. Like the first time I fought an enemy that like didn't just go down, and I was like, what do you even do? And then I talked to Smiley a little bit, and
can
he's
you
like,
remember?
well,
Can you
maybe
remember what?
try.
Can you remember what enemy that was?
Yeah, well, I
Hell
told you, and I don't think that like
No.
I don't know that it really I don't know that for you it like rang a bell, but like for me it was I was doing one of the side missions and it was these modified. It was like the little like floating mana like bots, but there were modified ones. There was like
Movers.
3 or 4 of them, and like they would constantly be putting up shields. They were it was just me and
Oh yeah, those
Aerith.
guys were
Like
a pain.
it was the
Yeah.
section where it was just you and Aerith, and so like I just felt like I couldn't really do anything, get anything done. Like I was trying to play as Cloud, but I could never catch them. Then I was trying to play as Aerith, but then they'd put up like shields, and it was like they I was just like I
Yeah.
wiped at least
That
once to
sucked.
them, and then like I talked to Smiley a little bit, talked about how pissed off I was, and like um and then just like went back and like just took it slower. and more intentionally, and I think it went well. And then like from there on out, I was trying to do that more, and just like, and then I unlocked, and then when I finally kind of built Tifa up, like the last third of the game, I just pretty much played Tifa and then just queued commands on everybody else. Like it is just, I don't know, if you like max speed on her and like do some of her like her special skills. I don't know. I'm going down rabbit trails now of like gameplay stuff, but yeah, just really really fun game. Then I started hard mode and I'm like, let me try chapter 1, and I think I could do it. I definitely did not clear the final boss, but like my character's like level 30 and I don't have like any max materia, and I'm like, there's a lot of ceiling.
It takes a little bit of a a little bit different of approach in hard mode,
yeah,
and a little bit of preparation, I think. And I just want to say I'm not surprised that Shy really got into the monk character. Shocking.
Yeah, wow, there's a shocker.
Fist weapons.
But I wanted to get back to Van. Van, do you remember what enemy was the first enemy that you were like, oh, why is this so hard?
Hell House.
Yes, that's what I was going to
gosh.
say, because the Hell House was the one for me where I was like,
Yeah.
am I playing this game wrong? What is going
What
on?
is going on? Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I know, like, the rock, paper, scissors, I get it. When to use magic, when to do physical damage and all that stuff. But man, it just wasn't clicking. I had to just muscle through, I think, most of it. I think like the first half, I think, was intentional. The second half, I was like, let me just throw everything at it and see if I can't kill this thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And just spamming heals and healing potions.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I gotta say, for somebody who coming from the original Final Fantasy, that fight was very cool because it wasn't in the same place. Like the Hell House wasn't a boss in the original game. It was just an encounter. But it was it felt like a boss sometimes because that dude was nasty and he could mess you up. And like it was such a cool moment for me because I was thinking that as I went through the part in the remake where you would normally fight the Hell Houses and there weren't any there. And I was like, I wonder if they're gonna do something special. And then when it showed up, I was like, oh, that's so cool. So I thought that was really well done to make that it's actually like its own boss fight.
Yeah, that boss
Anyway,
sucked. Yeah.
Go ahead and continue. So you were talking about your love-hate relationship with the combat.
When Van mentions rock paper scissors, I don't know if I even know what he's talking about. So there's still a good chance I've been playing the game completely wrong the whole time. I don't know, because I'm just using skills. So apparently there's times you're supposed to do stuff, but
So like Hell House specifically,
like the elements, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, indicators that
gotcha.
indicate when it's weak to what element versus another. So
yeah, I didn't figure that out till like 75% through, and I'm like, well, it's done basically. Hell House, I didn't like Hell House either, and I think Hell House is a great example of, I think, a downside of the real-time combat, at least in my opinion. And that is that it just feels like the enemy gets a lot more actions off than you do. And I think it's because you're playing a computer that doesn't have to like think through anything. It's just rotating computations, or it's just programming. Whereas like as a human, you have to think through things. Like especially a game like that where it's not a pure action game. You are having to switch between characters and do stuff. And so I think you're always going to lag behind, where it's like a true like turn-based like RPG, it feels more equal because like there's more grace for the player. And there were several times I felt that about the game where I was like, this feels a little cheap, like this boss, because I feel like they're just getting like 2 abilities off to every of my ability, or
Smelly, I haven't played original 7 in a long time, but that's not like true time stop turn based, right? Where somebody has to be given unlimited time to take their actions. The bosses will continue to fight, right? Even as you combat it.
Yeah, it was active turn battle, and so you could change the settings in the settings. You could put it on wait. And
that's right.
If it's on your command menu, their bar would still fill and they would continue to act. But if you went, it was very similar to like what they have in the remake, right? Like if you went into the magic or the item menu, it would pause while you're searching through the menu. So it was kind of it's fairly similar. But
I guess that's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah.
If that was similar to 7 and therefore intentional.
Yeah, I think it was.
Let me ask you this as veterans, because I guess there was that, but it was also the positioning part. Like the fact that you're running around a 3-dimensional space and doing that. And like, was there a positioning element in 7? Like if you were a melee, like you could just hit the enemy. Like I think that's one of the things about the remake is not only are there timing things, but you're
but no,
you may not be near the boss, you may not be.
Most fights there was no positioning. There was
Right.
certainly certain battles where like so for example, you might remember in the Shinra building where you fight that like scorpion type
Early
dude. I think
on
you
at
fight
the
it with
in the first
no,
Mako reactor.
no, in the Shinra building near the
Yeah.
end. You fight it with just Barrett and Aerith
Was
in
that in the
the
lobby, like
remake.
the lobby area in the bottom?
I forget.
Well,
Regardless,
all
there's
right.
a boss fight there where like you're on different elevators basically, and like your melee people can't hit because it's too far away. So Barrett can shoot them, but the other people can basically only use magic or ranged attacks if they have them. So there's certain fights like that where like you're limited in what you can do, but for the most part, there's no like there's a front row and a back row, and that's the extent of it. So
All right.
any other thoughts, Shy, about coming like so I think it's cool that you do get to experience like I guess Van and I'll get into this as what it's like coming from a veteran, but you do get to experience like what's going to happen with a fresh set of eyes, which I think is pretty neat. Like it's you know I'm kind of sad I can't. Like I mean you can for this game, but it's like Van and I kind of know where it's going, and you don't, and that's so
Yeah.
exciting. Like you don't know
There's
what's in
so
store
much
for yeah
more. There is
That's what I
yeah
so
hear.
much more.
Yeah.
yeah like Midgar was like the introduction. It was like the tutorial.
Like it was
The
Like
like the
game's like a
first like 8
70-hour
hours or
game.
something, or like yeah,
I would say fewer. Like the game's like a 70-hour game, and like Midgar was like 4 hours.
4
4 to
hours.
5 at most,
Man.
yeah. Even, like, doing everything there was to do and going slow, like, you could get out of it in probably under 2, I would say, if you
Yeah.
just were burning through. I mean, because they really fleshed out so much, and so sorry, I don't think I gave you an opportunity. Did you have any, like, kinda other thoughts before we go
I
into
mean, it was just beautiful too. I mean, it was just a really beautiful game. So
well, that's
they
cool,
did a
that's
great
something
job.
we'll get into that more because I wanna hear you can start thinking about it now. I'd like to hear, like, what parts of the game did you find the most visually captivating? So think about that. We'll come back to that one. Um,
Mm.
Van, let's
Yes,
talk
that's my
about
name.
let's talk about what it's like coming. What were your thoughts coming from somebody who had played the original?
So I think you're gonna have to help me fill in the gaps because you
Sure.
certainly played 7 a lot more and more recently.
Yeah.
Um, I played when I first played it. It was on 4 PC discs that you had to swap into your PC to play, or maybe even more. Maybe it was
Oh,
7.
you played on PC? No, I don't think it
Yeah, I
was.
played it on
PlayStation.
Can't have
PC.
Oh,
been
PC.
7.
It was
It was
insane,
it
dude.
was 3 for the maybe it was for
PlayStation, it
PC.
was
It was
more for
3
PC.
3 PlayStation discs. I don't know what I never
Yeah,
had for PC.
yeah, it was crazy. But anyways, no, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, when we said we wanted a final, well, I can't say we, the collective we, but when I said I wanted a Final Fantasy remake, I literally just wanted Final Fantasy as I knew it, with like amazing graphics, so we could see Tifa and Aerith and all the people we love, like just with fancied up graphics, cooler environment, and all that same stuff with the great, amazing story that we know. And what they gave us was some of that, but in a completely remade game with combat mechanics that are familiar but yet unique in their own right, as well as some introductions of new people in the story and some other stuff that I still don't even know who they are, or where they came from, or whatnot. Like they have to be part of the Final Fantasy universe somewhere, right? Like Roach, I guess. I don't remember
No,
him.
no, I think he was new to the remake. I don't believe he was.
Was
Yeah,
that the
I believe
soldier?
this
Was it the biker soldier?
yeah,
that was
on
the
the
biker dude.
motorcycle.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
and
believe
there's
he
Zach
is anywhere else.
at the end. Now I know Zach
Yeah.
is in the universe, and I know there's strong ties to Final Fantasy VII and some familiar characters with that. But he's in it, and yeah, it was interesting. But overall, it was an amazing game. It was one of those games that like once I got started, I really didn't want to put it back down. Took a pause towards the end after just trying to complete everything in the beginning and kind of burn myself out just a little bit. But then I just powered through the last few hours, and then it like the allure came back again, and I was all excited to finish, and I couldn't put it down again. So it's funny when Shai was like talking to us on the other day, he's like, oh yeah, I'm just taking a break, I'm at this point in the game or whatever, and I was like, oh, that's where I was when I took a break, and then I came back and I finished it all within like the next couple of days. um but no, I'm just really happy of how it came out, and I absolutely love it. It's actually my background on my computer.
So Shaw, I'm not sure how much of this went over your head having not played the original, but the kind of surprise theme of the game was that it's not actually the remake that we thought it was. So we expected that by Final Fantasy Remake, it meant that they were remaking the game for us.
Like
But
remaster?
yeah, a
Yeah,
remaster,
remaster
right? But
versus
it
remake.
wasn't remaster, right? It was remake. And the idea, right, is, and you kind of see it going on, is that those ghosts,
All
the
right, I want to talk to you
specters,
about, is that all, that's all
yes,
new? That's not, because it
yes,
felt weird. It felt
100%,
so weird,
100%,
all the ghost stuff. I was like, am I
yes.
supposed to know what's going on? All right.
It's a meta commentary,
All
right? So
right.
the ghosts are essentially trying to enforce the original plot from Final Fantasy VII
Hmm.
on the PlayStation. Anytime that things start to deviate from the plot, is when those ghosts show up. Those ghosts are essentially fate saying that this game has to be the same game that it was.
Yeah.
And of course, at the end, you fight and kill fate, which essentially unshackles the story to not have to develop the same way that it did in the original Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
So I think that it was like definitely a curveball because that's not what we thought. We thought we were just getting a remake of the original, and they're basically saying, "Hold up, you're actually not getting a remake of the original. We are remaking our future." And so,
Hmm.
obviously, as you mentioned before, there's reason to do that, right? Like everybody knows, Eris dies in Final Fantasy VII in the original, and so is there an opportunity perhaps to change her fate? Things of that nature, and so what I wanted to know, Van, is like, what did you think of that idea that like actually building it into the story, this idea of whether or not they should change the original game for this remake?
um, I thought it was pretty dang well done. It was hard to wrap my head around in the beginning, but
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was really well done. And then it also introduces like a multiple timeline theory too
Yep.
into it. So it's just I don't know, and that's some of the stuff that I hope we get to talk through that's a little confusing to me, but I think your explanation was probably the clearest explanation I heard about that. I knew when they arrived it was something anomalous that wasn't consistent with the story we knew, but I didn't understand it the way that you explained it. And that actually helped out a lot. Now it makes so much more sense.
I think too. There's some questions that whether maybe other people know them. I didn't really understand, but like it seemed like what did Eris know? Like it almost seems like she kind of knew that things weren't happening the way they always did, or that like it's like it brings us to a question like, is this just like an alternate universe or something, or is this some kind of like recurrence where like
Right.
they've done this before?
Hmm.
This is a role they're playing out that
Right.
Eris is trying to break them free of. Like
Yeah,
it's
because she
very
does seem kind of cheeky at times.
right.
Like,
Yes, there's
yeah,
times. Sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. So a lot of questions to be answered, obviously, in number two. I did see a interview with the developer, which said that like because people ask, well, okay, so if they've thrown off the yokes of of fate, are they are like is remake episode two basically going like off the reservation where who knows like or will it still have a basis in the original game? And the response was that the intent was not to just like say, okay, well now it's a new game, so
Yeah,
throw out everything you knew. It's
right.
still meant to kind of follow at least a broad path, but more to say you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. You don't necessarily know that this character is or isn't safe,
Yeah,
or what you're going to find around the next corner. Um,
right.
which
Because they got to keep core elements, right? Like golden saucers and
you would think so. Like
Sid and his airship and all.
that's
I
the
mean, like you
purpose
have
of the
to,
whole
right?
thing, right?
Squat
Yeah.
challenges, pull up
Yeah.
challenges.
Oh gosh, right? Right? Oh, we've lost it.
I love that
Podcast out
squat
of control.
challenge. I used to, when I was a kid, I used to do those squats like the same way. Like I would
Nice.
just like I'd be bored
That
and
was
I'd
your
just be doing them.
exercise. That's
That was my
awesome.
exercise. Like
Squats,
I
man.
was
That's
such a
core.
nerd.
Were you?
Core exercise, man.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say too that I think to wrap this idea up, like I think it was probably really hard for them. It was an incredibly high bar. We all agree on that. Like the anticipation for this game was insane. They're really I feel like this is their acknowledgement in a way to say like there's no way like we can make everybody happy,
Mm,
right? Some people really just want the core original game untouched as it was, which is I think what Van and I would have liked. Other people say that that's kind of boring. We want something new. And so this was I thought a really cool way of like not just doing it, but like acknowledging it while you're doing it and saying we're going to stay true to the spirit of it. They've kind of proved that through that. Like it
The
was
spirits
that
within.
game was hopefully not true to the spirits within. Um,
That's the future of
hey,
the
you want to talk about
franchise.
movies that really don't make any sense? Like Advent Children is way up
Yeah.
on that, way higher. The spirits within's in the bin.
Yeah.
But you know, like they did what I think they had to do to kind of say, listen, like hopefully there's enough here for the purists to like, but we don't want you to just know everything that's going to happen. We still want to be able to surprise you.
Hmm.
We still want you to be. I mean, like Van, like what was your reaction when Barrett died in the Shinra Tower?
I okay, so that yes, that caught me way off guard, and I got
Yeah,
pissed. I was
you're
like,
like
You
what? That's
can't
not
take
supposed to
that
happen.
much liberty. That's bull crap." Like, no, I was really upset.
Yeah,
Um,
they really shove it in your face there a little
But
bit.
then fate stepped in, right? Isn't that the
That's
idea
right,
that
and that
fate
didn't happen in
righted
the
it?
original
Yeah.
game. Not at
yeah.
all.
By
Like
then I
that's
was
why the
starting
art's
to,
very
yeah,
different.
yeah.
Yeah, speaking of people dying, one of my first impressions on the game is one that I think will be lasting with me for a long time. And it was when you see Aerith in full HD.
Mm,
And
Mm,
like in the opening, I mean, it's the open, you haven't even had a chance to play yet. It's just,
yeah.
just the opening screen. And I see Aerith, and I know my history from Final Fantasy VII with her, and the experience, the hours with her, and then her death, and all that tragedy that Shy was talking about, grown men crying, and he wasn't joking. Like that was probably the first time I ever cried in a video game, or at least got
yeah,
teary eyed.
I think so.
And
It's the
but
music
this
though. They hit you with that music.
everything,
You
well,
can't
the
not. You
sudden
can't not.
nowhere, the music, the unexpectation, everything.
Yeah.
And I just remember seeing Aerith in full HD, and that whole history of me with her, like in a millisecond, a split second, just conjured up so much emotions of like, that's amazing. She's fascinating and beautiful all at the same time. I was like extremely saddened to have to reach that part later on in the game. And it was like it was just a really weird feeling,
Mm.
but yeah.
Well, I
That's
mean,
gonna be with me for a while.
we've referenced it a couple times, but it's worth saying like they did so masterfully the way they did that whole scene because
It was
it
perfect.
doesn't just come out of nowhere. Like the way it leads up to it, like the area that you're in, the music prior to that is that like that creepy, like you just kind it's like it's almost like a Resident Evil game. And like
Mm.
you go into this area and you're like, you just kind of know something bad's gonna happen, but you don't know what it is. Like they really set the mood in such a way. And then, yeah, I mean, like, there's a reason that everybody like it was so impactful. It's because it was masterfully done, and it'll be interesting to see. Something I think Van and I talked about a little bit when we first started playing was like it's one thing to like let's obviously we've now that we've finished the game, we know that they've unlocked fate, and we kind of assume that part of that's going to be around keeping Eris from dying. But originally, when we didn't know that, we are like, it's one thing to see like a chunky polygony, you
Yeah.
know, th- person get a
Blocky
sword
arm.
shoved
Yeah,
through 'em.
exactly.
It's
Right.
another it's quite another thing to see a character that realistic and in that detail. Like she gets impaled on a giant
Oh, no,
sword. Like
from
I
back
mean, that's some
through, yeah.
it's
Oh
some
no.
Mm.
graphic stuff. So like
Yeah.
it
Spine severing. Yeah,
you
like,
wonder if
oh.
they would actually go that far. Like a lot of questions for the future
But I
parts of
think
it.
she has to
Definitely.
die.
That's the question,
No, I honestly
right?
think
I
I don't
know.
mean it in like a bad way. I
No,
mean,
of
she
course.
has to die.
Does she?
I
I
don't know,
mean,
man.
I have a feeling that's a rock.
Van's gonna riot if she doesn't
I
die.
am. If there's a way to save her, I am boycotting this game.
That's going to be the real question. Like, are they
But
baiting
is
us
there a
here? Are they
Ooh.
trying to say, "Hey,
Ooh,
don't
I like it.
make you think that you're going to be
Yeah.
able to save her, but really
There's
you're not"?
nothing you can
I
do. just when you think there is no way she can die,
Yeah.
you get that. Oh,
I
I
was
will
gonna
boycott the
say,
game if that happens too.
what if she survives? Like she makes it through the part you thought she died in the original, and
Right.
then like at the end of the game or like another place, she gets knocked off in
Ooh.
a completely unexpected and emotional way, and you're just like,
Yeah, like falls off a bridge or something.
just trips and like breaks her neck.
Yeah.
Oh, that was unexpected. See what happens when you kill Fate? There's no
Roll
guiding you
credits.
anymore. Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting, and I think, but I think really that's if I had to guess, and it's strictly a guess, but I have to think that that's probably going to be a lot of what episode 2 is all
That
about, right?
sucks.
Is
What a mind blow. Like that's the only thing I'm gonna be thinking of from now on is can I really save her or not? Or
Hmm.
it'll- so we're not
I'm
getting
gonna try to
too
kill
far
her.
into this. We
You just never heal her.
what I
Always
what I
having your
want to
party.
know is who's going to be possible to date in Gold Saucer. You know,
Ooh.
are they going to expand that roster a little bit? Maybe Red
Look,
13. You
I
know,
know we're
maybe
not there yet, but the next I'm looking ahead in our script and it says
yeah.
favorite things about the remake. Can I
Well,
just
I think we
say
are there. I think we're there.
Tifa?
We need to move there.
I'm just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say Tifa. They just
Ooh,
amazingly well done Tifa. Like, yeah. Taking
yeah.
it from polygonal pixels.
Listen,
Fantastic.
there's the part in the original when you see her on the carriage going to Don Corneo's mansion, and she's in
Yep.
that that dress that
Yep.
and like when you
Blocky
see it,
dress.
Yeah,
when
that
you
four pixel by 4 pixel
yeah,
dress.
but you can tell that
Yeah,
what it's
exactly.
supposed
Because
to
it had
be,
cutscenes.
and then when you get to that in the remake, and you're just like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah. No, they really did an awesome Tifa.
yeah. Th
Fantastic.
I thought they did a great job with all the characters. I mean, they
Barrett,
I think they captured their personalities very well.
yes.
Hmm.
Barrett's his voice is a little too deep. It's like comically deep, but
Right.
like
I
other than
I
that,
thought it
his
was
attitude
obnoxious.
is so right on.
I thought
Uh,
it was obnoxious in the beginning. I was like, this
yeah,
is a little over the top.
it
I
is.
get
Yeah,
it. Barrett's
yeah.
always been an excitable
Hey,
character
man.
though. He's always been super excitable, but then it started growing on me and I'm like, okay, I can accept this as Barrett.
I
Yeah,
don't
I mean,
I can't
go
remember
ahead.
if this was an option, but did you guys play in English or Japanese? Was it even an option to play in Japanese? I played it with English voice acting. I don't know if there
I
was
did as
even the
well.
option to.
Did you guys do subtitles?
I think I did. I almost always do, like in games, but
I probably
Okay.
did. Yeah, I did. I tend to as well.
not in
Yeah.
movies, but games for some reason. The reason I bring it up is I thought all the voice acting was really good. I know you guys are just kind of making fun of Barrett's voice, but I thought Tifa's voice actress was great, and I actually looked
Oh
her
my
up,
god,
the
it's
actress,
perfect.
because I was wondering what else she's been in. But just like a very kind voice, which
Yeah.
yeah,
They all were
Barrett
great.
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, Eris especially because like she was like in the original game, I never really liked Eris that much,
Hmm.
and in the remake, I also didn't really like her that much, and for the same reasons. Like she was really nice, but she's also kind of annoying,
yeah,
and it's like they really hit that perfect to me, where it's like she's like kind of annoyingly upbeat,
yeah.
which is exactly how I think her character was in the original game. Like, but they fleshed them out so well. They fleshed out Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse very well.
Red
Obviously,
13.
Jesse got a little bit. I like Jesse way more in the original though. Like she
I
got
didn't know Jesse was a girl.
a lot of people didn't. A lot of people
No,
didn't.
I
Those
literally did not until I
polygons
saw this and
could
I was
not
like,
tell.
wait.
She's very tomboyish. I mean, that's I
Yeah.
think they reflect here. But yeah, like it's a little harder to tell with those polygonal.
Yeah.
That Kate Sith character development.
I didn't know Kate Sith was a cat.
I like how they show what Kate Sith shows up for 5 seconds in a cut in that cutscene, and then that's it. That was cool
Yeah,
tease.
then
It was
he's
a cool
gone.
tease. Like I was like, there's they're kind of hinting at characters that you'll meet further
Uh,
down the road.
Laying the groundwork, if you will.
Yeah.
Which
I was
is
kind of
fair, and I don't. I mean, not to. I can't. I've got to be very careful what I say here because I don't want to spoil the future for Shy.
Hmm.
But Kate Sith would have been around
Right.
at that point in the original as well, even though you didn't know it at the time. You never actually saw the Kate Sith doll in the original, but knowing what you know later, it makes sense for him to be there,
Gotcha.
in my opinion. So, um, Yeah. What about what other favorite things? Let's talk. I teased it before. Visually, like, was there anywhere in the game that really stood out to you that where you were like, wow, like I'll start with myself this time because this was the moment that really, I was really loved, which was so I think we talked a couple times ago when we had our Nintendo episode about how cool I thought. I don't know why I find this so cool, but how cool thought of that Donkey Kong level in the winter level where the storm it starts as a clear day and then the clouds roll in, and then it starts snowing in the background, and then before you know it, you're in the middle of a blizzard. Like that change over time as you're going through the level is just something I've always liked. And when you're climbing the plate, when you're climbing the golden shiny rod of hope to get up to the Shinra building, I I felt something similar. Like for one, I thought that was just a really awesome climb. I mean, the climb's in the original, but it's not, and it's like they really just fleshed it out, right? Like they it's the exact same thing, but now they have the technology to really do it the way they wanted to, which is make you kind of see the devastation of the fallen plate and like the slum put out below you, which like it was just like a background
Yeah.
in the original, which was cool, but not the same way.
Hmm.
And I just like I think one of the iconic moments of Final Fantasy VII is when you get to the top, when you finish the climb, and Cloud is like they had this shot for shot in the remake, so I'm sure you saw it, Shy.
Yeah.
When you come up and like Cloud's like standing and like then
The
the
Shinra,
Shinra
yeah.
building is like looming above in the darkness. And like I was thinking as I'm going up, like, okay, it's still like evening time, but that shot is in my mind and I know they're gonna hit that. And it's like nighttime then. So I'm like, is the sun basically gonna set as I'm climbing this tower?
Hmm.
And it totally did. Like as you go up and up, like it's getting darker and darker until like you had that boss fight right at the twilight. Like that was dope. That was so good. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. My favorite chapter of the whole game for sure was the climb.
Nice.
What chapter was that?
13, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think it was either 13 or 14. Because it was then there was like two Shinra chapters, and yeah, that's what. Then after that, it kind
Okay.
of bogged down a little bit. But
Yeah.
what about you guys?
You had to
I'll go to
fight,
Van
fight, fight,
first.
fight, 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 fight. Like
Yeah.
the ending.
Hmm.
Oh my god.
So bad.
When we get to things lacking, I think that section's gonna come up.
We got some work to do on that. But yeah, Van, I want to hear from you. What
Yeah,
visually?
no, that's similar area. Just being able to like look on the side, of the rubble and all that stuff, and looking out into the distance and everything. And you're right in the original game, but it was like a still background,
Yes,
and
exactly.
and you just kind of see it like
And
the
like
still background moving. And
like
in this, yeah, like
first couple times I didn't even know what it was.
right,
Hmm.
Like I didn't catch it until like I think after I played the remake and was replaying, I was like, oh, look at that. That's a Oh, okay.
right. But in this one, it feels like a living, breathing environment. Yeah, it was just something spectacular. I agree.
Shy, you got a moment?
So the climb actually was not was my least favorite areas because, and I don't know, it's funny, I wasn't paying attention to the sun. I was looking at the ground, and the ground is such a low resolution map, and that's probably because they couldn't figure out how to make it look good and fuzzy and distant or blurred or whatever. But it looks so bad that like I would just find myself looking at it and like despising it, and so like I really actually really I was annoyed by the climb.
That is so funny. And I should have known you were going to say that because I saw that critique online as well. You are not the only person who feels that
Oh,
way.
I'm not
A lot of
surprised.
people were like, "This is bullshit. Why is it so low res in the
It's
distance?"
so bad.
It
It's
didn't
so
bother
bad.
me at all. I still thought it was
Um,
awesome. But
It's high
so
res compared to what I knew.
nice.
yeah,
So
that's true. Point of comparison
um
comes into play.
I think one area, and I know if we get some time, we'll touch on lacking. But I think I would have really liked the end section, like when you're fighting Fate and then when you fight Sephiroth. I think that's a really beautiful area. But I had some issues with that I've not really had a chance to hash out with you guys. Really, like I know I was telling you guys in chat I was running into some bugs, but I haven't really had a chance to discuss that with you guys. But I think I would have liked that. I think what comes to mind, and it's kind of a deep cut. I love rhythm games. You guys know that I love DDR and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed the dance that you do. And I only
Yeah.
did it
Oh
once.
my
I'm super
gosh.
excited to go back and do that on hard mode because like one thing I didn't like about it is how the camera frames the button pushes. I think it's done in a very manipulative and
Yeah.
tricky way to try to like get you to mess up, which was annoying because it made me not be able to enjoy the visuals of the dance. Like I just was finding myself trying to like, where is it? Like, is it under their armpit? Is it coming out of like the
Right.
legs? Like, but I thought that was just a ton of fun and just like goofy. I don't know. So I
I didn't
enjoyed that.
understand it. I passed it, but I didn't understand it. Like either my sync audio video was off on my TV or something. Because like according to the visuals of when you should press the button, the indicators, it was certainly not on any type of rhythmic
Hmm.
beat that I'm familiar that I was able to pick up on the in the game.
Mm.
And I'm a drummer too. I feel like I have rhythm.
I know you were a
Yeah.
drummer. Why haven't we had any
Yeah,
drum
buddy.
solos in this podcast, man?
Because it just
I
hasn't.
mean, I'm not a drummer anymore, but I was a
Oh,
drummer.
all right.
I want to go back to another one for me because I had two.
Wait, as far as what looked beautiful?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead
Oh,
because
yeah.
you
'Cause
took
you
one of
just copied
mine.
mine. So yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
basically, I just copied yours, or you took mine, and I just agreed with you.
Please
Nice.
be my guest.
Stolen. So I
Yes,
can't remember what.
but go ahead.
I don't remember exactly when it was, but I remember a part in the game where you were able to look up and see the plates above you
Yeah.
from the actual Shinra building, and you couldn't do that. There were remnants of it in the original, but you didn't have that 3D spatial viewing for the camera, right? You couldn't look around. It kind of set your camera in to where it was, and your character would move around. But in this one, you can literally move around, look around, in all dimensions. And being under the plate and looking up and just seeing it was like something amazing to me for some reason. Like just seeing all the underbellies and underworks and realizing like, dude, you are really in a slum. Like you don't mean anything to anybody. That top plate is where it's at, and you're down here in the dark, dank, slums. It was pretty impactful. I remember that moment leaving an impression as well.
I feel like I felt the same way from an opposite perspective, which was I think chapter 5, where you're going like you're like on the underhanging of the plate,
Oh yeah.
get up to the thing, and like again, that exact thing is in the original game, but like, and it's there, but like just like the climb, it's just, it doesn't really do it justice. Whereas like then when you're like, you're like on a little catwalk and you look down and you're like, oh holy crap, like
That's really bad resolution. What am I?
never once
Huh?
crossed my mind, but each their own.
Um,
Um,
yeah.
Go ahead, Chai.
I was talking about the plates, like the fact that after the plate drops, like there's that gap as you look around. I thought that was like a really,
Yeah.
really cool touch, and just
Very
like I don't know, yeah.
So the one I wanted to say, and it's kind of piggybacking off of Vance, which was, so you talked about when you first see Aerith, and I thought that part too was really amazing. Not, I mean, certainly for her, but like
Yeah.
I love like because again, this is shot for shot with the original, right? Where you see her, it
Oh, that
zooms
yeah.
out,
Yep.
shows the whole city, zooms back in on the train. But like in the original, like the fidelity wasn't there, right? Like you knew it was there, but it kind of zoomed out and you couldn't really see everything anymore. It was more just kind of like it was clearly a scene change. Whereas this one, like you could keep an eye on that street where Eris was standing, and it's there the whole time, in and out, and like it just felt like it was like, wow, this is exactly what we wanted from a remake, to be able to see this cool place and these cool characters just like fully fleshed out and realizing, like you said a moment ago, feeling like a real city, like having that consistency, like Shai said about like once the plate's down, it's down. You can look, you can see where it's down. Like very, very well done, I thought. And what I'm most curious about, I think I know where you get there in a moment, is like, what's the rest of the world going to look like? Like what about when we leave Midgar? Like how are they going to build the overworld essentially? That's my biggest question. Anything else? Favorite? So now, from anything, let's step away from just visuals, but favorite things about the remake. What were your favorite moments? Let's go back up to Shy.
It's weird because I probably have played it the most recently, and I feel like I already am like have like memory gaps as to like what. Maybe it's because I've been playing so much of another RPG right now that's what I'm thinking of most freshly. But I don't know. Come back to me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
so kind of talking about what you were mentioning. I thought it was fascinating at end credits when credits roll and you get like the 13-30 second snapshots of progression all the way from the beginning to the end, and I
Yeah.
was like, dang, I don't remember doing half that stuff until you reminded me. But I was like, that's amazing because I don't remember doing like half of that things, and they're just going over everything. I'm like, man, there was so much to this game by the time I finished that I can remember. So
Yeah, they're like, I know you guys complained that there wouldn't be enough content in Midgar, but
Yeah,
look at all the
right,
stuff you did. All right, you got your money's worth, right?
right.
I
Yeah.
liked Zach coming in at the end because I have played a good amount of Crisis Core. I didn't finish it, but I did play a good chunk of it, and so like I knew of Zach. Are
You
you
gotta
laughing
finish it.
because I don't
You
finish
gotta finish it.
games?
You gotta
Um,
finish it, especially because that's what makes that part so crazy. Because
well,
like
but
spoilers, he dies. So
yeah, I
like,
just know that they have a connection. And isn't the Buster Sword technically his? Isn't that
yes,
like
well,
so? Or maybe
yes,
not. I don't
technically,
He's
know.
also
but
he's
yes.
also Aerith's ex-boyfriend.
Well, I got that a little bit from the like Aerith makes the comment of the only other man I've ever loved was a soldier, and then there's that scene when like Cloud is seeing Zack
Yes,
and
yes,
Aerith is like seeing Zack, like
yes.
Cloud's walking between them or something, like a weird thing, and like I was like, oh,
And they
and I
kind of recognize each other,
yeah,
but they're not. Yeah,
and then but they're not in the same like timeline or I don't know,
right. Or
and
universe
then
or what?
yeah, so
A lot of questions about that for sure.
but
I
the
think every
music,
I
yeah,
got
the whole
questions
scene
for
I
you.
thought was touching. You know, like here they are fighting fate, like basically hanging on by a thread, and Zack is like coming to the city, being like, "Cloud, look, we've made it," or just like was very touching, even though I didn't really know the context or what was going on. Like I was feeling it. It was hitting me.
You should finish Crisis Core. That game's amazing and
I don't
has
have a
been.
PSP anymore. I don't know that you can find it anywhere. Like they need to remaster Crisis Core, bring that out to PlayStation.
We'll talk about it
Mail
after the
me a
show.
PSP. Is that what you want to talk to
Like
me about?
you're not advocating for piracy because he owns the game.
I'm
So
certainly not advocating for anything,
Nice.
but yeah, emulators exist.
Oh, nice. PSP emulators.
and you
Nice.
have owned the game previously. So,
Uh,
but we're not lawyers, so don't take legal advice from
yeah.
us on whether you can do that or not.
Yeah, listen, I would never advise on anything in any way. Other than that, you shouldn't have been watching this if you haven't finished this game. That was my advice.
There you
So
go.
That
You
is
sorry
true.
for
But
spoiling
that's
it.
not legal advice. That's
That is
opinionated
not.
advice.
That is just my
can
humble
take
opinion.
that to the bank.
My opinion is that nobody should watch this. Period. But
There, there it is.
My opinion is that probably nobody watches it. That's actually a fact, I think.
Well, except my love. Well, see, even Sarah doesn't watch it. She just
Yeah,
listens
listens to
sometimes.
it. Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know if she'll listen to this one, but if you're out there, love my wife Sarah. She's wonderful, wonderful patron of our show. Okay, so other favorite things. What do you guys think of
No,
the biking mini games?
least favorite areas, especially like the fact that apparently one of the trophies is tied to the first section, and I didn't clear it on the first playthrough on normal, and when I was reading about it, people were like, yeah, play your first playthrough, do easy, and there's all these trophies that'll be a lot easier if you do easy, that's one of them because it's more lenient apparently the HP or how much damage you take, and then the end biking stuff like that sequence was way too long in my opinion, in my honest opinion. That, and I think we were kind of we're not talking about negatives, so I didn't like the biking though.
I mean, well, I guess yeah.
Listen, we're masters and commanders of our own destiny. We've destroyed fate. Remember, so
There you go.
bring it
I
up.
just have to ask Shy, and I already know the answer. I'm pretty sure I know the answer. But what did you think about Roach, the introduction of the new soldier?
So weird. I don't know. Like, and I think that really like obviously I've played a lot of JRPGs, and so I get, and like 14 does this a lot, where it like really plays off these very like theatrical. And I know like Lai used to talk about like the terminology I think in Japan, where like the overacting, like kind of that whole like very melodramatic, or like even like some of the cross dressing and like kind of like playing with some of those tropes and whatever. Like, not that he was cross dressing, but he was very like, what do I want to say? He was
Flamboyant.
Flamboyant, yeah, kind of like
yeah,
flamboyant characters, almost like
it.
a Hildebrand, kind of almost like from 14, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so I was like, oh yeah, this is all right. This is gonna be something that happens, and of course later on in the Corneo storyline, the one faction, the honeybee guy, like he's obviously plays into that role as well. So it was just odd. I don't, yeah, it was fun. I didn't like the biking parts, but it was kind of fun when he showed up. Then when you're in the actual like can't outpost and you fight him, and
I think to me the biking stuff, that was a kind of an iconic part of that part of the game. Like it was your first real mini game that you played in the original. That was like it was a big part of it, I think, and something that people remember from that. And so I think they wanted to really kind of ham it up a little bit, and they probably went over the top. It reminds me a little bit of like the lightsaber duels in Episode 3 of Star Wars, where it's like, yes, everybody loves the lightsaber duels, but they kind of like threw so much lightsaber at you that at some point you're just like, all right, like what are we really doing here? Like I feel like I see that with the biking where it's like they really wanted to give you a lot of biking to really feel like you got your money's worth on the biking, and maybe it was a little bit overdone. But
Mm.
Fan, other favorite things?
um, no.
I'll
Select
say
everything.
for me, I really liked the weapon upgrade system. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
It gave you some customization options. It gave you something to work on. Like that's what if you remember way back to when we were just talking about this game, one of the things I worried about is like, okay, if this is gonna be the full game, but you're only really talking about the first part of a different game, like what kind of like progression is there? Like, and I thought that the weapon upgrades kind of gave you something to like work on mastering weapons for all your
Mhm.
different characters and learning the abilities and like I just thought that was a very that was one of my favorite parts about it was getting new weapons, leveling them up, mastering them, kind of tinkering with them to kind of have them fit your play style. It was good stuff.
I think you guys, I mean, have dealt with Materia before. I'd never really dealt with something like Materia, obviously, except in 14, which is a much more dumbed down system. But like, the Materia is like something that actually makes me the most interested in actually coming back to the game. Like, I do plan on platinuming the game, and like I said, like I jumped into chapter one hard, and like I got to the final boss, and I almost beat him, but I didn't. Like, I could tell when I didn't win. Like, these are things I could do differently. I burnt too much MP
Yeah,
early on, but I'm also like,
Yep.
I don't have any maxed Materia. I don't have like
yeah,
there's so much progression I can do to like make myself stronger that like it wasn't like hopeless. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is impossible. And I think like I could totally see myself like going back and like there's just some really cool material and like cool combinations that like talking about like Tifa and like some of the like specific character specific material like I don't know like and I also want to talk about just the special combat abilities, how each character had the special ability. I think it was normally triangle on the PlayStation
yes,
controller, like, and how it really changes like how the character plays from other characters and like how like kind of they're useful in different situations. Like Cloud, I thought his predator mode was super useful, like for any like especially like the shield dudes, like that you can't like physically attack. I know like the magic works really well against them, but also you can just like turtle up with that predator mode and like they come at you and like and you just hammer them. Or like even some of the like the propeller guys, I hated those guys, the flying guys. But if you're in
yes.
predator mode and you sit there, like when they come in and swipe at you, you like you counter attack. And like I felt like that was, I don't know, like it was just, it really changed the way the game played, depending on if you were, yeah.
Yeah,
I think the blocking mechanic was super helpful too. Talking
Mm.
about like game mechanics, like there's a lot of times where they introduce blocking into a game and like it just never gets
never
utilized.
ever use it. Yeah,
Right.
you
Ever.
have
And
to,
in
right?
here, no, you have to. Like you can't get a standard attack off edgewise
Mm.
unless you at least first try to, block the combat. So
Yeah, I think that was one of the things I liked about it is it wasn't a Dynasty Warrior style, right?
Mm.
Where you could just spam A and swing your sword
right.
relentlessly and kill every enemy. Like there was some thought required. You had to either block or dodge or time things with different characters. Like you couldn't just button mash your way through it. Again, you could for a lot of the game, but it wasn't efficient. And then you'd get to a point where you get to enemies where wow, like you're really having like you can tell you're doing it wrong. You can tell you're like brute forcing it and that there's a better way. Quickly, I just wanted to note that like I think one of the points of hard mode and making it so you can't use items is because they have some of those really cool materia that like your first playthrough you probably never even used or were just like whatever. And like I think a lot of those weird kind of weirder or more niche materials really can make a difference in hard mode when it's like, okay, I don't have a way to use any items to revive myself, to heal myself, to fix status effects. Like you need to like use creative
Mm.
solutions. And I think that was kind of probably the point of that to say we put all these cool materia in the game that most people don't actually need. Let's give you some ways to handle some of these challenges.
Yeah, staying on materia and hard mode, I also felt a lot towards the end of the game that I had way more materia than I needed. Like
Yeah.
I didn't I had way more, excuse me, way more slots available than I needed for my materia.
Hmm.
And like I never felt like I was struggling to fit all the materia in my weapons or armor or anything that I needed. And I feel like in hard mode that's where all that's going to come into play. I'm going to have to be very selective about which ones, even multiples of ones, right? So if I want two
Yes.
spellcasters, instead of just carrying around one, MP up materia, I'm going to need to max out a second one to distribute those between two people. And since you're not using, you're not using potions, you got to have another alternative healer. So.
Well, and if you're thinking, and I don't know if you guys caught this, I'm sure you guys did, but like the HP and MP can be stacked. So like they give you a certain amount, but then like it's what max, I think it's 50%, but it's up to 100% if you have two of them. And so like that's enough. I was reading like a lot of people I think were doing that on hard mode is they would max out 2 HP and MP materia per character basically, and like have the 100% boost.
Which is cool because that's a throwback to the original, right? Like you could do that once you got the HP up. Like you could equip like 5 HP ups on a character and max their HP if you want to use all those slots.
Nice.
Like to again piggyback on something Shai was saying, how each character has a little bit different feel. We know that Shai's favorite character to use was Tifa, right? One of the questions I had for you, he's already answered it, but I'll start with Van. Who was your favorite character to use other than Cloud? Like if you had to switch off a Cloud, who would you say you spend the most time actively on, or who did you enjoy being actively on the most? Eris,
Yeah,
Tifa,
probably Tifa also.
Tifa also.
Yeah, and only because anytime you switch to the character, they seem to draw hate like immediately, consistently. And so Aerith, like if you're on her for any moment of time, like she's dead, and she didn't have any tanking ability. So I would say, yeah, Tifa. Yeah, I would say Tifa. You know what? No, I'm gonna switch that. I'm gonna switch it to Barrett. And Barrett was my tank. Like he was beefy. I max his HP. I max like defense on him. Everything. He was a beefy mofo. Whenever I had a chance to choose the defense or whatnot on his weapon skills, I always applied it. And yeah, I just liked his range combat. Didn't use much magic with him at all. He was just a very brute force individual, but he was beefy. So yeah, I didn't mind playing on him because if he was being attacked, well, that's what I wanted in the first place.
Well, let me give you a tip for Eris. She's not meant to stand there and take hits, as you probably found out. But her attacks are ranged magical, so you have to like kite with her. It's like you attack and then you like roll and dodge and skip away, and then like it's she's much different, I think, than any of the other characters.
And she is strong.
But,
like just that single flick of that freaking wand is crazy strong.
And especially since it's base magical, it's great for like Shai was saying. Like there's some enemies that like put up that magic shield, or like like they're a pain in the ass. And so like switching to her in those times really helped me. But I agree with you. Barrett was my boy ever since the beginning. He was just very enjoyable to play. Like his abilities felt good to use. Like you use his triangle and he's like, boom, and you're like, yeah, like they did a lot of damage. Like I loved some of his later abilities that just dumped damage on enemies. A lot of fun. I found myself actually using him more often than Cloud in some cases. I would just idle on him and then switch to Cloud and Tifa when I wanted them to do other things. So Barrett's always been my boy though, ever since back in the day. His characters cracked me up since like the first time I played that game. Like I remember when because I was, let's see, came out in '97, so I was in 7th grade when this game originally came out, and I like the scene on the train where he's just like cussing him out, and it's like you never saw that in a game before. Like you never saw anybody using expletives, and he's like, "If y'all weren't such damn fuck ups," and you're just like, "Dang, what is this game?" Freaking love Barrett, man. That guy's good. Oh man. All right. Well, we need to get into things lacking from the remake. We need to get into hopes and expectations for part 2. We're kind of approaching the end of the line here. Do we want to try to squeeze it in, or do we want to give this game a second round? Maybe we could add some other stuff to it if we need to flesh it out. What do you guys think? We'll make the decision on the fly here.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because would we feel like we would need, like, the next episode would need to be part 2, or is this something we could come back to? Because I was going to say, like, with Intergrade coming out, like, at some point, like, I imagine we would probably revisit Final Fantasy VII Remake anyway, once we've had a chance to play the new story content with Yuffie, and also, like, those of us who have PS5s are able to see, like, the upgrades for that. Inside joke, everybody. He's talking about a hybrid Final Fantasy character's name.
Riku and Yuffie.
Yeah, it should be like Rufy. That's what you said, I guess. Yeah, all right. But yeah. So that's my question to you guys. Like, do we do an immediate follow-up and then we revisit it again in the future, or do we try to squeeze everything we can in right now? We're definitely over. Not that we can do whatever we want, but
I wanna give it the time it deserves. So even if we don't come back to it immediately next week, if it's in a month or so when maybe the PS5 version comes out or
Yeah,
whatever.
because there's like storyline and plot hole things that I want to get into also.
Yeah.
I see. Well, we'll listen. We'll talk amongst ourselves. We'll do this off the air
All right.
about whether we come back tomorrow or not tomorrow, but like next
Yeah,
episode,
next week. Yeah.
or we parcel it out and try to do a more in-depth PS5 one. That's TBD. But
Yeah.
I agree. I think we've gotten into it here a little bit. There's a lot to talk about. This is a great game. I think we all enjoyed it certainly enough to play all the way through it and finish it. Which in this day and age, let's admit, like, when's the last time you played all the way through and finished a game? Or like, what percentage of games you buy would you say you do that to? For me, it's kind of low. So,
Same here.
any
We
final
should have done
thoughts?
it chapter by chapter. That would have been awesome.
What?
Podcast after each chapter. Oh, that'd be 16 podcasts though. That's too many.
Oh, that might be a lot. We could have done it. We can still do it. We do it for
Do
hard
like
mode.
Legendarium style.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, if you have thoughts on Final Fantasy VII Remake, if you'd like to give us some feedback on whether we should come right back with another FF7 podcast or no, go take a break, come back in a little bit later, you can help craft which direction this podcast goes. We need to hear from you. Best way to get a hold of us is on our email, focustargetpodcast@gmail.com. We're also on YouTube. You can see this entire stream, all of our other podcast episodes, as well as the streams we've been doing. Van and I, along with some of our other friends, have been playing Valheim a lot lately, which has been a lot of fun. You should definitely check that out. We're on Twitch, twitch.tv/Focus Target Podcast. Of course, our Twitter @Focus Target. And yeah, I guess that's it. I guess that's all the places you can find us on, right here on Twitch if you're watching us live. So thanks for being with us for episode. What episode 84? Gosh, we're really climbing the list, aren't we? Episode 84 of the Focus Target Podcast. This is your host, Smiley.
This is Shy.
And I'm Van. As always, cover us, Porkins. We're out.